should obey the Scythians in their demand to break the bridge of boats and sail away to their homes. But when the Phoenicians brought Miltiades' son Metiochus before him, Darius did him no harm, but much good, giving him a house and possessions and a Persian wife, who bore him children who were reckoned as Persians. Miltiades made his way from Imbros to Athens. In this year the Persians caused no further trouble for the Ionians, and at this same time certain things happened which greatly benefited the Ionians. Artaphernes, governor of Sardis, summoned ambassadors from the cities and compelled the Ionians to make agreements among themselves that they would abide by the law and not rob and plunder each other. He compelled them to do this, and he measured their lands by parasangs, which is the Persian name for a distance of 30 stadia, and he ordered that each people should according to this measurement pay a tribute, which has remained fixed as asserted by Artaphernes ever since that time up to this day. The sum appointed was about the same as that which they had rendered before. This then kept them peaceable. But at the beginning of spring the other generals were deposed by the king from their offices, and Mardonius, son of Gobryas, a man young in years and recently married to Darius's daughter Artazostra, came down to the coast at the head of a very great army and fleet. When Mardonius reached Cilicia at the head of his army, he himself embarked on shipboard and sailed with the rest of his ships, while other captains led the land army to the Hellespont. When Mardonius arrived in Ionia, in his voyage along the coast of Asia, he did a thing which I here set down for the wonder of those Greeks who will not believe Otanes to have declared his opinion among the seven that democracy was best for Persia. Mardonius deposed all the Ionian tyrants and set up democracies in their cities. He did this and hurried to the Hellespont. When a great multitude of ships and a great army were assembled, the Persians crossed the Hellespont on their shipboard and marched through Europe, with Eretria and Athens as their goal. This was the stated end of their expedition, but they intended to subdue as many of the Greek cities as they could. Their fleet subdued the Thracians, who did not so much as lift up their hands against it. Their land army added the Macedonians to the slaves that they had already, for the nations nearer to them than Macedonia had been made subject to the Persians before this. Crossing over from Thrasos, they travelled near the land as far as Acanthus, and putting out from there they tried to round Athos. But a great and irresistible north wind fell upon them as they sailed past, and dealt very roughly with them, driving many of their ships upon Athos. It is said that about 300 ships were lost, and more than 20,000 men. Since the coasts of Athos abound in wild beasts, some men were carried off by beasts and so perished. Others were dashed against the rocks. Those who could not swim perished because of that, and still others by the cold. Thus it fared with the fleet, for as Mardonius and his land army, while they were encamped in Macedonia, the Brigi of Thrace attacked them by night and killed many of them, wounding Mardonius himself. But not even these could escape being enslaved by the Persians. Mardonius did not depart from those lands before he had subjugated them. After conquering them, he led his army away homewards, since the Brigi had dealt a heavy blow to his army, and Athos an even heavier blow to his fleet. This expedition, after an inglorious adventure, returned back to Asia. In the next year after this, Darius first sent a message bidding the Thracians, who were falsely reported by their neighbors to be planning rebellion, to destroy their walls and bring their ships to Abdera. Since they had been besieged by Histiaeus of Miletus and had great revenues, the Thracians had used their wealth to build ships of war and surround themselves with stronger walls. Their revenue came from the mainland and from the mines. About 80 talents on average came in from the gold mines of the Dug forest, and less from the mines of Thrasos itself, yet so much that the Thasians, paying no tax on their crops, drew a yearly revenue from the mainland and the mines of 200 talents on average, and 300 when the revenue was greatest. I myself have seen these mines. By far the most marvelous were those that were founded by the Phoenicians, who with Thasos colonized this land, which is now called after that Phoenician Thasos. These Phoenician mines are between the place called Enira and Conira in Thasos, opposite Samothrace. They are in a great hill that has been dug up in the searching. So much for that. The Thasians at the king's command destroyed their walls and brought all their ships to Abdera. Then Darius attempted to learn whether the Greeks intended to wage war against him or to surrender themselves. He sent heralds this way and that through Hellas, bidding them demand a gift of earth and water for the king. He dispatched some to Hellas, and sent others to his own tributary cities of the coast, commanding that ships of war and transports for horses be built. So the cities set about these preparations. The heralds who went to Hellas received what the king's proclamation demanded from many of those dwelling on the mainland, and from all the islanders to whom they came with the demand. Among the islanders who gave earth and water to Darius were the Aeginetans. The Athenians immediately came down upon them for doing this, for they supposed the Aeginetans to have given the gift out of enmity for Athens, so they might join with the Persians in attacking the Athenians. Gladly laying hold of this pretext, they went to Sparta, and there accused the Aeginetans of acting to betray Hellas. Regarding this accusation, Cleomenes, son of Anaxandrides, king of Sparta, crossed over to Aegina, intending to arrest the most culpable of its people. But when he attempted to make the arrests, the Aeginetans opposed him, especially Caius, son of Polycritus, who told him he would not take away any Aeginetan with impunity, for he had no authority from the Spartans for what he was doing. Instead, he had been bribed by the Athenians; otherwise, he would have come to make the arrests with the other king. He said this because of a letter from Demaratus. Driven from Aegina, Cleomenes asked Caius his name, and when Caius told him what it was, Cleomenes said to him, "Now is the time to put bronze on your horns, Mr. Ram, for great calamity will confront you." All this time Demaratus, son of Ariston, remained at Sparta, and spread evil reports of Cleomenes. This Demaratus was also king of Sparta, but of the inferior house, not indeed inferior in any other regard, for they have a common ancestor, but the house of Eurysthenes has in some sort the greater honor, by right of primogeniture. The Lacedaemonians say, but no poet agrees, that it was Aristodemus, son of Aristochmus, son of Cleodas, son of Hyllus, not his sons, who led them to the land which they now possess. After no long time, Aristodemus's wife, whose name was Argia, bore him offspring. Of Autusian, son of Tisamenes, son of Thersander, son of Polynices. She bore him twins. Aristodemus lived to see his children, then died of a sickness. The Lacedaemonians of that day planned to follow their custom and make the eldest of the children king. But the children were identical in all respects, so the Lacedaemonians did not know which to choose; when they could not judge between them, or perhaps even before this, they asked his mother. She said she knew no better than the Lacedaemonians which was the elder; she knew perfectly well, but she said this because she desired that by some means both might be made kings. The Lacedaemonians were at a loss, so they sent to Delphi to inquire how they should deal with the matter. The priestess bade them make both children kings, but give greater honor to the elder. When the priestess gave this response, the Lacedaemonians knew no better than before how to discover the elder child, and a man of Messenia, whose name was Penates, gave them advice. He advised them to watch the mother and see which of the children she washed and fed before the other. If she was seen to do this always in the same order, they would then have all that they sought and desired to discover; but if she changed her practice haphazardly, then it would be manifest to the Lacedaemonians that she knew no more than they did, and they must have recourse to some other means. Then the Spartans did as the Messenian advised. As they watched the mother of Aristodemus's children, they found her always preferring the elder when she fed and washed them, since she did not know why she was being watched. So they took the child that was preferred by its mother and brought it up at public expense as the firstborn, and they called it Eurysthenes, and the other Procles. They say that when these two brothers grew to manhood, they feuded with each other as long as they lived, and their descendants continued to do likewise. End of Volume 2, Part 15.